Hey everyone, and thanks for tuning in to the Hormone Genius podcast. Teresa and I are so excited today to be interviewing Alex DeRose. Alex is a family nurse practitioner and fertility care educator trained in NaproTechnology and the Creighton method. She's passionate about spreading the truth in women's healthcare and empowering women with knowledge of their feminine genius to make positive decisions for the culture of life. Currently, as a Catholic wife and homeschooling mom of 4 boys, she continues to spread these truths through writing and speaking on various mediums. She has a blog called joymamablog.com and Instagram at Alexandria DeRose. So we'll be sure to mention those again at the very end of the episode. But Alex, welcome to today's episode. We're really excited to interview you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. Let's just kind of jump right in. Tell our listeners a little bit about you, your story, and how you got just so excited about this topic of fertility and fertility awareness.
Sure. Yeah, I'm so excited. And I didn't tell you this before we hopped on, but when I was going through my training, this is the podcast that I wish existed. So I'm so thankful that you guys have started this. I think it's going to be really great for our culture. Yeah, I really do. So the first, I guess, story, I grew up as a cradle Catholic. And so I was really always convicted about my own morality and kind of confident in my own femininity. You know, I never really was needing or tempted to kind of, take the birth control pill myself, those kind of things in terms of women's health. So as I went through nursing school was kind of my first encounter with just the massive prevalence of women, that were my age going through my education process, that were really like the opposite of me and felt that they were just almost trapped into not feeling empowered and not having this knowledge. And I think it was Teresa, I think when I listened to one of your podcasts that you had a similar encounter maybe through nursing school. But so that was kind of my first like story really of just, like I said, feeling this shock and almost like disillusionment. And as I got to know more and more women in the medical majors and even just friends that I would have, how prevalent, and I'll just start speaking with just the birth control pill to come off with my main thing with women's health to start, and just really shocked about how many women were taking the birth control pill without really understanding why. And the more that I would question them, they would tell me these side effects that they were experiencing. They would tell me stories about how maybe they weren't taking it for contraception reasons. They don't know why they were taking it. Maybe it was for acne. Maybe it was for, all these different reasons. And like I said, I had always had a very like driven passion for truth and for kind of my own awareness. I was just kind of blessed in that way. My mom's a nurse, my dad's a lawyer, very Catholic. So I kind of just had this backdrop of knowledge going into that. And so I really wanted to understand where these women were coming from. And like I said, being a young woman in nursing school, talking through these women. And my first experience was, I'll never forget, 2 of these women who I befriended dearly, kind of just through conversation and just through, we call it, motivational interviewing and asking them questions, well, what do you think do you think that you could get off of the birth control pill? Asking them those types of things. And do you think that maybe you're feeling this way? Do you think that you could talk to your doctor about this? All of those strategies. And they came back from Christmas break, both telling me they had stopped the birth control pill and they couldn't feel better. And they were so thankful to me. And, so that was kind of my first empowerment of saying, how important the truth is and how much women really want to know this. And so, I've always wanted to help women and help people being a healthcare provider in general. So that was kind of the first seeds that were planted from my experience in nursing school. And then I became a young mom, became a young wife. My husband and I, once again, both practicing Catholics, were using natural family planning in our own marriage. And so I kind of had that backdrop. We both chose the Creighton method for various reasons. And so that was kind of a backdrop going into early marriage and early motherhood. And then deciding to go back to school and get my master's degree, once again, was kind of this shock of, I shouldn't really say disillusionment, but just for my own sake, it was almost like the same thing that happened through me in college on a grander scale. And just really could not believe. And I think I've heard, I think both of you ladies speak of this with your education backgrounds. I think Teresa specifically also through grad school. I couldn't believe how specifically, once again, the birth control pill was really pushed in every single one of our women's health classes. And I remember like raising my hand and questioning things and looking around the room. Why is no one else questioning things? And not only the birth control pill, but kind of just some underlying tones of not a complete culture of death, but kind of just these underlying tones within specifically women's health. And just kind of the opposite of how I was, feeling empowered and wanting women to know more about their natural cycles, especially me personally, how I was, like I said, in my own marriage and motherhood. So I ended up doing my thesis on the birth control pill and abortion linking with breast cancer. And that was kind of a whole experience in itself, with learning more about pharmaceutical companies and learning more about, just kind of the different ways that you guys are well aware of this, different ways that research can be hard to sometimes find the truth in these things. And surprisingly was able to successfully go about having this thesis. The professor who saw my interest in women's health and recommended me to do my internship with Planned Parenthood ended up completely supporting my thesis and wanting to get it published and working with me. And so it was another empowerment of like, even women throughout all seasons of life and throughout all various education backgrounds or wherever they are in these programs, just really want to know the truth and are craving that. Mm-hmm. So those are just two of my, I guess, powerful stories that kind of really encouraged my passion for this whole women's health and, fertility and all of that.
Wow. That's amazing, Alex. And yeah, I mean, as you're telling your story, I'm like, wow, that sounds very similar to my experience. So I'm sure you felt that when you listened to, my story as well. Mm-hmm. And it's so true that, as a culture, and this is, as we get information, how we form ourselves around that information isn't always, it's not easy, like you said, to get to the truth when you're with people that you trust. Like when you're in a college and academic setting, if they're giving you all this information, there's this underlying assumption that the truth has already been spoken because it's coming from a place of prestige. So when you're kind of counteracting that and you're saying, well, I guess I just don't understand why we don't look for the underlying root cause of women's health issues, or why the pill is used for everything without question. Mm-hmm. You can kind of be going against the grain. I mean, significantly against the grain, because there's an assumption that the truth has already been spoken to you. Mm-hmm. And I think when you talk to people and talk to women who have been on the pill, it's just, it seems as if there's just this understanding to them that they were told that this is the best thing for them and they don't question it. Mm-hmm. That if it came from a doctor who went to an well-educated place, that I should just assume that it is all right for me to take this medication and it will be good for me. Mm-hmm. And as you open up to women and try to understand, what was your level of informed consent? What were you mm-hmm. told about it? You realize that they really were told nothing about mm-hmm. how it affected their body and how it might affect, their health long-term. Mm-hmm. And that's what's so exciting about, being in this world, all of us, is because we're blowing the water open, and we're really allowing women to see the whole truth of something and to question everything and to advocate for themselves. And that's what true empowerment is. So your story is awesome in that sense. So I want to know then how because obviously when you realize maybe the pill isn't the best way, you also have to know then what's the alternative.
Mhm.
So, and that was where I was at. Like, okay, if I don't want to prescribe the pill because I think maybe this isn't the best for women, what do I do with all of these health conditions? So
Yeah, I'm
how
so
did
glad
you
you said
come
that.
to,
Yeah, that's totally,
yeah.
I'm glad you said that, because that's probably like the third part of my story, I would say. So yeah, and I totally agree. And so once I was going through that graduate school process, I always knew that truth was truth, and that there was that there were people out there who thought the same thing as me, and felt the same way. So I never ever gave up hope. I never gave up hope. I just knew that I needed to get myself in front of the right people and find the source. I knew I wasn't the only one questioning this, and so I just started doing research, and very easily came about finding NaproTechnology. And I live in Pennsylvania, and so I was only about 20 minutes from the NaPro Center that's in Pennsylvania, Camp Hill Holy Spirit, a bunch of NaPro doctors. So I was able to do one of my women's health rotations there, connect with a bunch of just pro-life providers who had already questioned what I had questioned, already been down that route, and already came up with answers. And actually, thankfully, my mom, who I'm the oldest of 8 kids, so she and they kind of had maybe like a reversion through the last 5 of us. So she had delivered all of her babies at Holy Spirit with those NaPro doctors. And so she had already kind of awareness of these doctors who were practicing this way. So I kind of had a connection through that as well. So I that was my first step of just, finding what people had done that had asked the same questions that I had done, and interviewing them and learning from them, and what were their hurdles and what were they doing. And through grad school, I remember I would keep a document of just asking them, how do you go about practicing? Say you're not working in a Catholic hospital, say you're working in a family practice. How do you, like you said, what do you tell these women is your alternative? What if even ethically or morally, and even medically, you don't really agree with these treatments? How do you go about doing that? And they were amazing. They had all the answers. They had researched things. They had, and so all I really had to do was, follow in other people's footsteps and learn from them. And I remember, like I said, I would keep this document of, how successfully this physician who worked in a Medicare only office, how would he handle underprivileged women who would come in, and he still would refuse to prescribe the pill. That was amazing. I thought, how does he do that? And he would tell me his tactics about how, he would never really bring up religion, but he would and tell them their options and say, I don't agree that this is the best medical treatment for you. This is what you can do alternatively, and then there was female doctors working in family practices. And I would say, how are you doing this? And they would tell me what they were doing. And so, finding NaproTechnology, which I know you guys have talked about a lot on here, but that was definitely key, of being able to offer this alternative and say, as a provider, this is for whatever reason, and depending on this case scenario, not having to go into detail of why, you're just, like you said, informed consent, allowing women to know these are your options, and learning from these other providers, and then going into, as a new nurse practitioner, into an office, um, you know, not feeling as confident, but having the background and having the support of these other providers who worked at the family practice with me, that were on the same page. That was key. And telling the front desk that, she's not going to be prescribing the birth control pill, things like that. And watching these patients, watching the women's faces just almost like light up and relieve that, okay, what are my options? Tell me what this is. Oh, yes. And, just watching them be so relieved and be so encouraged and interested in learning what their other options were, and having another female provide that to them, which for many of my patients early on, that was their first experience of ever hearing an alternative, of not just coming in the office saying, okay, what's the next pill pack?
Right.
That was their first experience. And that was, once again, empowering for me. And it was a hopeful time of realizing that women they are craving the truth, and they love having their own options. They love being provided with choices, you know, and as long as we are doing our job of providing that to them, most of the time they're going to ask their own questions, and they're going to, you know, successfully choose, I would say, the healthier option. So,
I have a question real quick for you.
Yeah.
Well, one, I want to say something I love all to say, and I've probably said it before, but I really believe when women aren't given all their options, they're not really choosing. You know, we think pro-choice.
Yes.
I'm like, nope.
I was just going to say that, Jamie. I love it.
Okay, so as you were talking, I was thinking in my head, I'm imagining the people listening to you, and I imagine that some of them are nurses. I imagine that some of them are midwives. I imagine that some of them are nurse practitioners, and they may be feeling a burning in their heart, like, I feel so convicted right now, but I feel trapped. Like my employer would never allow me, or I don't know how to have that conversation. I don't know where to even begin with not prescribing birth control. I feel like I'm trapped, and I think I'm the only person on the planet that has this feeling. But I want to say there's hope to all of you listening, that you're not the only one, that there is a community rising of medical professionals that see the disparity that this pill is causing and the harm. And what would you say, Alex, for advice to these professionals that in their heart, they're burning for something different? What would you share with them? And then the same thing for you, Teresa, like both of you, what would you give as advice?
Oh yeah, I would say, you know, absolutely. My advice is to search, and reach out, because, you know, and even through like life experience of just being a mom, and this is what I always tell new moms, like, every question that you have in your head as a new nurse, every question that you have that you think you're the only one asking, you're not. Everyone, you know, I mean, people have asked the same questions as you. People have gone through this. And so there are people out there. So I would say the first step is just research and seek out. And of course, you know, every situation is different. And so there are, I wouldn't say less hopeful situations, but there are situations that are more difficult. You know, you're not going to have a NaPro office down the road. You mean that's just there? Yes, that does exist, you know, but especially in this age of technology, where we can get so much support from each other through any type of profession, you know, that there is completely hope out there for you. And I mean, I could just start listing off different associations, different places that you can look. I mean, the Catholic Medical Association, you know, you can hook up with them. I mean, of course, the Pope Paul VI Institute is always there for support. You know, you can go with there. There's many pro-life providers who have been down that road and have paved the way for us, and are paving the way for us. And so you're not alone, and don't try to do it alone, is what I would say.
Because community is so important, right? Like that's Alex, that's when you were talking, I was thinking that's what the secret bullet, the secret ingredient was the community. You were exposed to this just as the way that medicine can be, you know, like
exactly.
Your mom.
And of course, you know, they try to do it the opposite. Like, of course, you know, the devil, the culture of death, I mean, tries to isolate us. And so that's of course the doubt that I think is going to come to any new medical provider, any woman, any patient. You know, you know, that isolation feeling is going to be where we'll lose.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly. I don't think I have much more that I can offer in terms of advice. That's just so well. But I do agree with you that there are situations that make it a lot more difficult for some people. And I've heard stories of, you know, literally people wanting to take the leap of faith, and because our society is so about not having choices, you know, that this is the only way that you can practice women's health, that they're boxing these people in or pushing them out, basically. But there, like you said, you have to form the community and you have to get the support. I was also thinking, Jamie, when you were saying that maybe someone who's listening to this episode might be a first-time listener, and maybe we're using this word NaproTechnology and they're like, why do they keep saying that word? You know, and I don't know what it means. So just for those of you who do not know, NaproTechnology is considered a woman's health science developed by Dr. Thomas Hilgers at the now St. Paul VI Institute in Omaha, Nebraska, where I practice as a nurse practitioner. But what it stands for, and a lot of people probably don't even know what it stands for, but Dr. Hilgers coined that term because it stands for natural procreative technology. And the desire in this form of practice is just to cooperate with the natural procreative functions of the body. It's not all about fertility and infertility. It's just a cooperative and restorative approach to women's health, where we're not manipulating, suppressing, or destroying the reproductive system, but we're trying to work with it and restore whatever underlying root cause was leading to the woman's health issue. So that's what NaproTechnology is. But it's truly the only, I guess, highly developed toolbox at this point that we have for those of you out there who are like, I don't know what I would do if I didn't prescribe the pill. What do I do for my patients with PCOS? What do I do for my patients with ovarian cysts? What do I do for my patients with acne? If you were one of those providers and you're like, I just wouldn't know what to do, NaproTechnology is your biggest toolbox. It's the most researched toolbox. And it gives people an ability to be like, okay, I have the answers now. And I'm sure you felt that way too, Alex.
Oh yeah, that is so great. And it's so key too, to have something that is, medically proven, scientifically, like all of these, a great, legitimate, natural option that is really a mainstream toolbox. So I think that's great. Yeah.
Do you see a lot of, you could say doctors, people in general, that maybe don't agree with this concept of natural family planning, fertility care, use the reason that they don't support it as like, what are women going to do if they can't be on the pill? Not even for like gynecological reasons, but birth control issues. I find that like when I hear that, almost like women can't control themselves. Like, it's like we're saying women can't control themselves, so you better give them the pill because they don't have a mind to make good decisions. And until we empower women to make good decisions, then we're going to continue giving them the pill. It's like what you were saying at the beginning, Alex. This thought is coming from something you said at the very beginning. You said women were taking the pill, they didn't even know why they were taking it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like they're being prescribed it without even the like, the confidence that they can make a good choice, that you're going to make a bad choice. So here's a pill so you don't get pregnant or whatever.
It is. Well, this is just where we're stuck in our modern culture. And it's like you said, Jamie, about the play on words, which I was totally going to bring that up because that's definitely one of my biggest things is, pro-choice, and just the experiences that I shared with you is that when women are provided legitimate choices, they'll choose for themselves, and the pro-choice, pro-abortion movement just stole that terminology to try to, play on women's empowerment, and so we are truly the true feminists of being pro-choice. I mean, we want women to have all of their options. We don't want women to leave with just a prescription pill pack and having no idea what they're doing. That's the antithesis of pro-choice, right? We want women to be aware of everything. We want them to know their feminine genius, their hormone genius. We want them to be empowered and make their own choices. That's truly what the pro-life movement is about, allowing women to make these life choices. So I think that it's really what your question, I think it's really just a stuck in a misinformation and an ignorance of just, where that, for example, that modern woman is, and I really am very hopeful. I don't think that it's the majority of women. I think that, I think that it's just an ignorant problem, which means lack of education, and I think in our new age of technology, I think we're at a huge opportunity of winning this over and educating women, and and this rise of, I would say, what true feminism is not, the 60s pill pack. And I think that women, even in my generation are catching on to that more and want that. And so, I would just say that I have a lot of hope. And I think that the biggest thing of getting a woman one-on-one and encouraging her one-on-one and giving her choices, I think almost 99% of the time, you're going to leave that woman, with more of a, of a true feminist empowerment and a true, and she's going to feel more encouraged, I think.
Amen. That is awesome. I would love to know, Alex, just just in your practice, and I don't know, because I know you have a growing family, so I don't know how often you are practicing right now,
yeah.
but I mean, oh
Could be
yeah,
any day.
I thought there was for those of you who cannot see and you're listening on a podcast, we just got a good belly shot of a beautiful baby that Alex is obviously close to delivering probably here. So that's totally awesome. But yeah, I just want to know, because I know for a lot of us in women's health who are practicing, using this holistic approach, we kind of have our favorite things to treat, or maybe we feel like we're particularly good at treating something. So is there anything, a particular women's health issue that you just have a heart for, or that you feel like you've kind of found a really just beautiful way to practice it?
Oh, that's so great. I wish I had more experience to say that, really. I mean, I would say that's a really tough question. I would say maybe women's health, specifically, probably when I was practicing, it would be, PCOS, irregular cycles, and then the unexplained infertility aspect, where it's almost there's just no lack of their cycle at all. That's probably like my sweet spot of like treating an ideal woman who kind of just, maybe she, for example, maybe they're trying to achieve, or maybe she comes in with irregular cycles and thinks she's infertile, and just has complete ignorance of what's going on with her cycle, and just doesn't know at all. And being able to, and that's the side that kind of Jamie works with too, of just educating a woman on charting. I would say that's probably my biggest passion, or favorite patient, I would say, and just working locally at my parish, and when I've been home with my boys and not practicing in a medical office, I've been doing more of that side of the education part of teaching women about their cycles, and through moms groups and different things like that. So I would say that's probably one of the sweet spots too.
Yeah. It sounds like you really love that, kind of that like mind-blowing experience that happens when you've taken somebody who didn't know about their feminine genius.
Yes.
And you just rocked their world with all this information, and they're like,
right.
What? Like,
exactly.
How did they not know that?
Right.
How many times has that happened to us where women were so uneducated about their body,
mm-hmm.
and you come along and you give them all of this beautiful information, and they are just, they're floored by it. I love it.
And I love what you said too,
exactly.
Alex, about like truth.
Exactly.
There is truth. And when women are given the option to understand their choices, or they're just informed and educated about how their body works, there's like something that lights up in all women, it seems, like it's always been there. This feeling, this sense that you probably couldn't name, kind of like, the Wizard of Oz, when it's like black and white world, and then she wakes up and then she's like, whatever, where was she? Yellow Brick Road, all the colors, like the colors come into the scene, like the shapes were there. They didn't know anything different, black and white. And then the colors come and you're like, what? I can see now, this makes sense. I think all women have this, and it's our job to just shed the light on it, and just share the truth in love, because I think it's become so, I don't want to say this has become polarizing, but the like pro-life, pro-choice, that's very polarizing. If we just can just assume that people deserve to know, and it's not a polarizing thing, it's just love and respect for the person to educate them, that the lights turn on.
Jamie, you always have the best like analogies. Can I just say that?
Like
you just came up with that like Wizard of Oz thing, and I was like, what? That's like so good.
Oh, Teresa. I think it's because my husband probably is, I love my husband. He's amazing. He's very deliberative, and when he talks, every word matters. For me, I'm like, blah, blah, I talk too much. So I just realized analogies help me get straight to the point without having to go on and on, So it's like a little hack.
I love that.
But thanks, Teresa. That's really nice.
You're welcome. Hey, so Alex, you have 4 boys, right?
Boy number 4 due any day. So
okay, yeah. So 4th boy coming. So and Jamie, you have 2 boys, right?
2 boys.
2 boys, and I've got 6 boys. So this is totally off topic, but I don't know. I just am finding I want to ask this question. But what is like your boy kind of parent nugget or
That's so funny. I just wrote a
about
whole
mothering
blog post
boys?
on it. I just wrote a whole blog post literally yesterday on boy mom.
Oh,
So
well, there
that
you
is
go.
so, yeah, no, I love it. I love it. And it ties into our conversation just about the knowledge and the truth and the fight for justice and truth, goes hand in hand with men and women. And I think for little boys, just they love having that imagery of, being a warrior, being a fighter, and, same as women, so that's my nugget for the week for boy mamas is, using that. And I know in our house lately, we've been talking about the rosary. And so, using that, how that's a weapon for truth and a weapon for justice. So using that kind of imagery. And like I said, it goes same with women, that women want to be truth bearers in the same way. So
I love that. I love that idea of the rosary or, as a weapon.
mhm,
But I love that imagery. I've
mhm,
heard it, but I have not thought
mhm.
like I
Oh
should.
yeah, that wasn't me. That was the great saints. They're Saint Padre Pio, and they have all quotes on the rosary as the greatest weapon of our time.
Yeah, I love that because I haven't ever thought to explain it in that way to our boys, So
Right.
that's really cool. It's amazing.
Yeah, I can't take credit for that, but yeah.
You're the messenger.
What would be the challenge then of raising boys for you? Like, what do you see? And obviously, you said you don't have girls yet. It's kind of hard because
Right.
you're like, well, I haven't parented girls, so I don't know. But
Right.
do you see any like, oh man, boys are hard because of this?
Yeah, I mean, my oldest is barely 8, so I mean, I haven't gone through like, major parenting advice things yet. But I guess I can, you can foresee that just being used to twist that, right? Just the opposite. Boys want to fight, they want to stand up for justice, so that can just be used in the opposite. So same thing with women. If we do anything to kind of, I can't even think of a better word, but almost like cut off for men, like cut off that desire, right? Which when you talk about the birth control pill and we talk about women's health, when we do anything to shut our bodies down, take our feminine genius down, it's like taking the male feminine genius down. When we like chastise their desire to be a warrior and a fighter, we're just going to kind of distort that, and it's going to be used for the evil. So same thing for women, when we do anything like suppressing our body and taking away our those great desires that we have as women to be caring and loving and using our feminine genius and being empowered, when we do anything to shut that down, it's just going to be used for the evil. So I think that's the greatest challenge for boys, is calling them warriors and fighters in a positive light, and how can they use that for good. Same thing for women, using, and I know you guys talked about this in one of your episodes, that with Leah, those 3 main things for that women are women powers, right? So when we take any of those away, that's just going to be distorted and flipped, right? So that would be the call for girl moms, not suppressing any of our powers, just like for boy moms, not suppressing those God-given powers.
Oh, I love that.
That is awesome. Good stuff.
So good. Okay, Alex, I have one question that I ask every person who is interviewed by us, okay?
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you that question, and then I want to make sure our listeners know how to follow you and how to stay in the loop with all your good work too. So I definitely want to make sure that we include that here as we're closing. Unless, Teresa, do you have any other questions here before I ask the final?
You're good.
Okay, sweet. All right, Alex, what do you wish every young woman knew about her hormone genius?
Oh, I love this question. Yes. I wish every woman knew she had a hormone genius, I think. I mean, and I don't know if anyone had answered that before, but I wish every woman knew they had a hormone genius. And I wish that every woman knew and was taught how to chart their natural cycles. And I wish, I mean, there's probably 4 things. And I wish every woman knew how to chart her cycles, what they were naturally, right? I wish every woman knew what NaproTechnology was, which is what Teresa explained, and where to find her local NaproTechnology doctors, physicians, where the closest ones are to her, in that area. And then I wish that they knew the full scope of the birth control pill and knew the different side effects that it had, and understood why they were taking it. And I think that that's just part of the genius that you talk about, of just, genius is knowledge, right? And so having all of those different things in place. And I think that applies to healthcare providers listening, to women listening, moms listening, knowing those things will just be empowering.
Amazing. Okay, so Alex, tell everybody, and this can be our call to action, actually. A call to action is to be sure to check out Alex and her work. But Alex, will you share a little bit more about your blogs and your Instagram and that kind of thing?
Yeah, definitely. Yes. And right now, with being primarily home, using the tools of technology and using the tools of the internet has been one way that we can, use the tools available to kind of fight for this culture of life and spread knowledge with NaproTechnology. So I do a lot of writing on, motherhood and, like you said, raising boys, raising girls, pro-life movement, feminine genius, fertility awareness, natural family planning. So you can go to joymamablog.com and then over at Instagram at Alexandria DeRose.
Awesome. Alex, thank you so much for joining us, and God bless you as you prepare to deliver your fourth child.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. And keep up the great work. I think this is a much needed podcast. And I think, getting the word out through this podcast is going to be great.
Awesome. Thank you so
Thanks
much, Alex.
so much, Alex.
Thank you.
Be sure, our listeners, be sure to follow Alex, and please be sure to share this episode, especially with medical professionals in your life who may really be struggling, needing to know that there is a community of people that really support and acknowledge and embrace the natural design. So thank you all for listening.
Thank you. Okay.
Bye, Alex.